Discover the incredible bond that transformed a billionaire's one-legged son and a poor black kid. Karen wiped down the same table for the umpteenth time, her thoughts swirling like the coffee she poured for the regulars. Every scrap of income mattered, a lifeline tethered to her son Jamal's dreams. They were not just dreams, they were the vivid murals that lived in his mind, brushing colors across a world she hoped could be brighter. The diner felt suffocating as weary souls filled the booths. The booth by the window gleamed, a spot where Jamal had sketched dreams during her breaks. But this was mere survival. Rent loomed, bills piled high, and her heart raced with every fleeting thought of failure as she glanced back at deadlines that whispered their reckoning. She hesitated, a swirl of emotions boiling inside her, juxtaposed against the laughter of families sharing meals. What if the art program that meant everything to Jamal remained a distant fantasy? Did she possess the strength to provide that for him? Would she have to explain to him why they couldn't afford to pursue his passion? As a single mother, the weight of the world rested on her shoulders, squeezing tightly. Each long hour at work chipped away at her resolve, yet it also ignited an unquenchable fire within her. She had to push forward, no matter how insurmountable her struggles felt. As she passed by the kitchen door, Karen's mind caught on Alex Wells, the mansion at the edge of town, the name tied to power and anguish. The whispers about Alex were endless. A tragic accident that left him with a prosthetic leg. Karen felt their lives threading together, though worlds apart. She imagined the constraints that came with being the child of privilege, how those expectations could suffocate even the most vibrant spirit. Another rush of unease gripped her. Alex may have been wealthy, but loneliness knew no social strata. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Even after closing time, the diner buzzed in her mind, a cacophony of difficulties. Overhead lights flickered as she finished stacking the chairs, imagining their weight pressing down on her spirit. Each crunching coffee cup against the table echoed with doubts until her own reflection began to fade. She wanted to believe in a path for Jamal, to watch him paint murals that healed and inspired people. Yet, could a boy from the diner ever truly step into the world of prestigious art? Could her financial struggles be a chain fastening him to an unseen destiny? Out in the rain-soaked street, a flicker of color caught her breath. Jamal had set up his art on cardboard, bright paints dancing in the dim light. She thought she saw someone standing among the drying puddles, inspecting the work she had only dreamt could be a gateway to better. Did he see beyond their reality? Or would society's eyes remain glued to their differences, narrowing into harsh judgments that could tear the tapestry of their lives apart? As she gazed through the window, heart racing, a storm of fears mingled within her. Would they ever discover the countless shades of their true selves, or would prejudice shroud them in silence? Karen slipped out of the diner, the soft patter of rain washing over her worries, its rhythm soothing yet relentless. Stepping into the night, she tried to direct her focus away from the suffocating weight of financial bills and broken hopes. Jamal's palette of dreams painted a world of possibilities, and she yearned to help him reach them, yet reality tugged at the corners of her optimism. With every step, she grappled with her own decisions. Each financial constraint battled against her will to empower Jamal, leaving her at a crossroads where choices loomed like impending storms. The art he'd created sprawled across the wet cardboard under flickering streetlights, shining against the gray backdrop of their struggle. Jamal had poured his soul into that art. It was his way of reaching for something greater. But she could see how his eyes wandered between hope and despair, reflecting both the encouragement of his dreams and the harsh grip of their circumstance. Her thoughts drifted once more to Alex Wells, the young billionaire who had become a quietly tragic figure marked by isolation despite his wealth. Jamal spoke of Alex with a blend of admiration and fear. The boy was captivated by the notion of someone larger than life, yet burdened by immense internal battles. What would happen if their paths crossed? Would Alex's experience with loss and limitation resonate with Jamal's artistic journey? The idea set off a flicker of hope within her. Determined, she approached the street corner where Jamal had set up his makeshift display. The vibrancy of his artwork contrasted starkly with the dullness surrounding them, and for a moment she felt a surge of pride. This was his expression, his voice amidst a world that often ignored kids like him. Yet she also saw the vacant stares of passers-by, the indifference in their eyes as they cloaked their judgments in silence. Did they see a boy with talent, or merely a child whose dreams were too grand for their reality? "Mom!" Jamal exclaimed as he spotted her, his energy infectious even against the backdrop of rejection. "Did you see what they think?" He gestured toward a couple lingering over his art, their expressions caught somewhere between curiosity and skepticism. "Yes, I saw them," she replied, taking a deep breath. "But what matters is what you think, honey. Are you proud of what you created?" He grinned, nodding vigorously. "I want to paint like those famous artists. I know I can if I just get a chance." "Then let's make a plan," she suggested, her heart leaping at the thought. How could she help him get noticed? Perhaps they could find a community center or an exhibition willing to give him a platform. But would that be enough? Would art be a true escape or just a temporary salve to the struggles they faced? Even as she spun plans in her mind, doubt lingered like shadows. Could she really facilitate his success? What if the world proved to be as unyielding as the storm clouds overhead? "Mom, I want to show my work to Mr. Wells," Jamal blurted out unexpectedly, his eyes hopeful with unfiltered ambition. The mention of Alex's name shocked her. There was an undeniable bond forming between her son's dreams and the boy who lived in the mansion. What if that connection held potential? Perhaps if Jamal reached out, it could weave their worlds together, bridging gaps she had initially deemed uncrossable. Yet her instincts twisted with fear. Was it even wise to step into the world of privilege? The thought alone sent shudders through her psyche. What if they were met with disdain instead of acceptance? The road ahead seemed treacherous, laden with potential heartbreak. "Jamal, we need to think about this," Karen replied cautiously, heart pounding. "Please, Mom, he needs to see it," Jamal insisted, determination dripping from his voice. As his gaze met hers, a silent understanding blossomed. She could either protect him from the harshness of reality, or they could leap into uncertainty together, forging a path toward the unknown. With resolve electrifying her thoughts, Karen took a deep breath. She couldn't hold him back now, not when he was ready to paint his future bright. But would that leap bring them closer together, or tear down the fabric of their already precarious existence? Tomorrow they would confront this path, whatever lay ahead. A surge of adrenaline coursed through her. The moment of decision had come. What would they discover about themselves and each other in the pursuit of understanding a boy like Alex? The sun filtered through Karen's blinds the next morning, awakening her thoughts to the immediate tension that lay ahead. Today could alter everything for Jamal. Her inner critic wrestled with the cautious voice of a protective mother. Would the prospect of introducing Jamal to Alex bring fulfillment or devastation? She ran her hands through her hair, whispering affirmations to bolster her resolve. They spent the morning planning, creating a small portfolio of Jamal's artwork that would capture Alex's eye. Karen watched Jamal work with fervor, every stroke filled with ambition and earnestness. It warmed her heart, yet chilled her with the reality that ambition could lead to disappointment. "Mom, can you help me prepare what to say?" Jamal asked, his eyes wide, anticipation mixing with nervousness. "Of course, sweetheart," she replied, trying to conceal her own apprehension. "Let's think about what makes your art unique. Why do you paint?" He paused mid-stroke, a shadow flickering across his forehead. "Because it lets me talk when words don't work." His tone carried a weight that went beyond childhood dreams. Karen felt the heaviness in that statement. His art was more than a passion. It was an echo of his spirit fighting against suffocation from a world that overlooked them. But the gravity of walking into someone's life, someone like Alex, who possessed both privilege and pain, filled her with uncertainty. As they rehearsed, Jamal stumbled over his words, each misstep leaving a mark on both their hopes. "What if he doesn't like it?" he asked, and Karen's heart clenched tighter. "He will," she replied, attempting to infuse optimism into the moment, though her own doubt lurked like a shadow. "But what's more important is sharing your voice, whether he understands it or not." The transformative power of vulnerability was a lesson she sought to impart. But as they prepared, she realized she wasn't just teaching Jamal. She was confronting her own fears of inadequacy, of stepping into an unfamiliar world. Each rehearsal session revealed not only Jamal's struggle, but also her desire to shield him from disappointment. When the hour arrived for their meeting, her pulse raced in tandem with Jamal's hopeful energy. The taxi ride across town felt surreal. Karen watched the changing cityscape through the window, the disparity of lives existing side by side. Her thoughts spiraled. What if their time in Alex's world tore at the seams of their reality? Upon arriving at the opulent mansion, dread pooled in her stomach. Its grandeur loomed over Jamal like a giant's fortress. She half expected to turn back. The burdens of responsibility felt heavier with each breath, each tick of her watch echoing her internal conflict. "Mom, it's okay," Jamal reassured her, his young voice shattering her hesitation. "We're here for me. Just remember everything we practiced." He was more determined than she ever imagined. But could resolve alone carry him? Could she stand beside him as he plunged into this uncertain world? They approached the front door, and she hesitated, recalling countless nights spent nurturing his dreams while fighting against her own limitations. What ambitions had she buried in the shadow of survival? As the door swung open, revealing Alex's puzzled but intrigued expression, the wide expanse of opportunity stretched before them, a chasm filled with unforeseen joys and perils. "Hi, I'm Jamal," her son declared, his voice a steady lighthouse in the swell of anxiety. Would this connection result in something genuine, or merely amplify their struggles? Karen held her breath, waiting for the response that could either open doors or shut them once and for all. The moment hung in the air, charged with tension. "Your art," Alex began, looking past Jamal as if stepping into the depths of his sincerity. "I want to see it." They were on the brink of a new journey, the merging of two separate lives within a singular moment. Could this be the beginning of something transformative? Or would it unravel into disillusionment? All she could do was wait, balancing hope against what she truly feared. The pause lingered like a heavy cloud, each passing second amplifying Karen's worry. Alex's gaze fell upon the portfolio resting against Jamal's side. It was filled with art that blossomed from emotion and experience, yet now felt simultaneously vulnerable and exposed. The weight of judgment hung thick in the room. "Please, come inside," Alex said, breaking the silence and gesturing for them to enter. He led them to a spacious, sunlit studio filled with canvases and colors that delighted the senses. Karen felt a flicker of comfort within the chaos. This space was alive, just like Jamal's art. "Make yourself at home, Jamal." Alex's voice was inviting but layered with an expectation that tugged at Karen's gut. As Jamal placed the portfolio on a nearby easel, Karen observed the two of them. Her son, standing confidently in his own world, and Alex, a successful figure seemingly untouched by struggle, yet somehow intrigued. Jamal displayed an urgency in showcasing his work, and his excitement stirred Karen's heart amidst the anxiety of an unknown future. "What inspires you?" Alex asked, looking over each page meticulously. Karen held her breath, knowing her son was stepping into a conversation that could either affirm his worth or dismantle it completely. Jamal's hands trembled slightly, but his voice came out steady. "Life. It's messy and beautiful, like how we cope with everything." Alex nodded, captivated as Jamal continued. "I use bright colors to show joy even when things are hard. It's how I talk." A flicker of understanding danced in Alex's eyes, and Karen's chest constricted. Would this connection expand Jamal's world, or would Alex's unfamiliarity with their struggles lead to a misunderstanding? Karen broke her gaze from them, the studio's vibrant energy a stark contrast to the turmoil brewing inside her. Was she witnessing the evolution of Jamal's dreams unfold before her? Or was the entire scenario a facade masking inevitable heartbreak? "Your perspective is refreshing." Alex's voice broke through her spiraling thoughts. "Why don't you tell me about this piece?" He gestured toward a canvas adorned with dynamic colors and abstract shapes. Jamal's face ignited with passion as he explained. "This one's about resilience. Every stroke shows a struggle, but a fight to rise above. It all connects." Karen's heart surged, a pride intertwining with fear. Jamal's vulnerability was laid bare, and she could feel the connection intensifying between him and Alex. Yet doubt loomed. Was this man who appeared deeply invested truly capable of recognizing the depth of Jamal's artistry and the battles that shaped it? As Jamal bobbed between enthusiasm and nervousness, Karen's thoughts drifted back to her own life. A career sacrificed for motherhood, an ambition buried under disappointment. Layers of sacrifice. Watching Jamal ignite a connection she never had spurred a fire in her. Could she harness this moment, this influence, to redefine not just Jamal's future, but her own? "Alex," she ventured cautiously, "do you hold art to a different standard because of your background?" Her voice trembled, tinged with the need to understand where Alex stood, both as a mentor and a creative. Alex's brow raised in surprise. "Competence is universal, but context matters." His gaze shifted to Jamal. "It changes how art speaks." A moment of clarity washed over Karen. Perhaps this meeting was not solely about Jamal's art. It was about challenging the system that prescribed worth based on privilege. She needed to embrace every part of this discussion, discover what it meant for herself and her son. In that instant, a realization anchored within her. She held more power than she acknowledged, not just as Jamal's mother, but as a woman with her own aspirations. Could she navigate her discomfort and seize this opportunity to transform her own narrative? Should she confront whatever it was that kept her tethered to fear? As Jamal and Alex dove deeper into conversation, Karen contemplated her own unsaid ambitions, a weight shifting within her. The silence that ensued spoke volumes. The immensity of potential loomed just beyond the horizon. What awaited her as she stepped forward, ready to challenge her own barriers? Would her journey finally begin? Karen's thoughts spun with urgency, each flicker of doubt igniting a mix of determination and fear. Watching Jamal share his art, revealing pieces of his soul, urged her to reassess her own life, now held lightly in the shadow of his moment. She felt the sudden weight of years spent on the sidelines. The job offers declined, the ambitions shelved, dreams abandoned in favor of motherhood. Yet here, in this vibrant studio, something began to shift within her. This place pulsed with the raw energy of creativity, a beacon calling her to take a more active role, not just in Jamal's journey, but in her own. She could feel the gradual unpinning of her own limitations. As Jamal engaged Alex with excitement, illustrating the layers and narratives within his work, Karen recognized the tension in Alex's demeanor. His eyes glittered with a fascination that was reassuring, yet she sensed an underlying skepticism rooted in their different worlds. The breadth of privilege loomed like an invisible barrier that Jamal might not fully comprehend. Karen wondered if Alex could bridge that divide, or would he dismiss Jamal's artistry as something quaint, dismissing the struggle behind it. "Mom, look, this was my reaction to overcoming the bullying I faced last year," Jamal said, his hand pointing vigorously at a canvas swirled with chaotic patterns and bright colors. "It was like storm clouds, but I learned to find the silver lining in everything. I call it finding the light within darkness." The words struck Karen with intensity. They resonated with her own unspoken fears. The challenges she faced were real and poignant, shaping both her and Jamal's identities. A visual manifestation of resilience radiated from the canvas Jamal presented. He had become a young warrior, wielding paintbrushes instead of swords. Karen felt a bubbling surge of ambition in her chest, as if newfound resolve was fighting to break the surface. She had played the role of supporter, but what about her own story? What would it look like if she dared to create her own narrative of success? "Alex, what if there's more to explore beyond the art itself?" she proposed, her voice gaining strength. "What can we do as a society or even individually to ensure that young talents like Jamal connect with opportunities tailored to their experiences?" The words flowed from her, laden with urgency and a hunger for action. Alex's brows knitted together, intrigued. This was a side of Karen he hadn't anticipated. "An interesting perspective," he said, tilting his head slightly. "Art retains its power when backed by context. It becomes a platform for transformation. But it's those who recognize the value of that context that can truly affect change." Karen nodded slowly, juxtaposing his words with her own journey. They were intertwined in a rhythm of shared growth. The more she illuminated Jamal's journey, the clearer her own path became. A moment of revelation surged as she understood. She needed to be more than an audience to her son's transformation. Her role was to advocate for his journey and her own desires. This studio might symbolize a new beginning, not only for Jamal, but for her rebirth as a fierce participant in life. Jamal, unaware of the deeper conversation brewing between Karen and Alex, continued to delve into his artwork. His passion igniting ideas in Karen's mind. A resolve began to crystallize. Maybe, just maybe, it was time she ventured beyond the confines of her fears and constraints. "What if I showcased my own art alongside Jamal's?" she mused, almost aloud. The thought leaped forth uninvited, shaking the very foundations of her hesitations. "I've been painting for years, but I've never shown anyone." Echoes of fear prickled her resolve momentarily, but Jamal's proud face shifted her gaze back to the present. Was she ready to break through the mental chains that bound her? "I could invite you to a small gathering, share my art, perhaps with other budding artists. It might inspire them." Karen felt courage shattering her doubts. This could be the pivotal crossroads of voice and expression. The idea hung heavy in the air, laden with promise and trepidation. "Can I really do this?" she questioned silently, the boundaries of her identity beginning to crack open for the first time in years. As the conversation turned to more specific plans for exhibitions, a quiet whirlpool of anxiety tightened in her stomach. Standing at the edge of possibility, she felt both liberated and chained by her fears still. But before she could dwell deeper, Alex turned towards Jamal, effectively drawing the focus. Back to his creativity. Karen's thoughts were wild, searching for clarity in what felt like an exhilarating storm. A path loomed ahead, and as she grasped at it, the realization that her journey of transformation was intertwined with Jamal's began to illuminate her thoughts. But was she prepared for the doubts that lurked and the confrontation waiting just beyond her self-imposed boundaries? The moment of true reckoning felt imminent. Would she grasp this chance and face the risks that lay ahead? Only time would tell, but the first brushstroke of change was poised. The moment hung in the air, vibrating with unresolved tension. Karen's heart raced as she considered the significance of her notion. Could she truly transform her latent dreams into reality? Her mind swarmed with a kaleidoscope of worries about how others would perceive her, about what her artistic expression might mean in her life's narrative. She watched Jamal, his face alight with passion, his hands skillfully dancing across the canvas. His devotion to his craft sparked something within her that she hadn't felt in a long time, a flicker of hope intertwined with a reminiscence of her own dormant aspirations. She had spent years mired in the expectations of others, first being the dutiful daughter, then the devoted mother. And what about herself? What would it look like to pursue her own aspirations alongside those of her son? "Mom," Jamal interrupted her thoughts, his voice filled with excitement. "Can we do this together? Maybe I can help you showcase your art too." His enthusiasm ignited another wave of courage within her. His words were an invitation, a call to embrace their shared creative journey. Yet that tantalizing cheeriness was tempered by a rush of self-doubt. Could she truly stand next to him, canvases side by side, vulnerable and exposed? What if her art wasn't good enough? Worse yet, what if it was ridiculed? The laughter around her eased the edges of her fears, and she breathed in deeply, reminding herself that creativity was an act of bravery. If Jamal was a warrior with paint, why couldn't she be one too? The old narrative of not enough threatened to creep back in, but she fought it away like a shield. "I think I will," she declared, finding an unexpected strength in her voice. "But I'll need your help, Jamal. I want it to be more than just showcasing my art. I want to create a connection, open a dialogue." Jamal's eyes sparkled, and he nodded vigorously. "We could invite people who have stories like ours, artists from all backgrounds. It would be amazing." He was envisioning a celebration of authenticity, of narratives that compelled and connected. Karen's heart swelled. They were not just visual artists, they were storytellers. And for the first time, a coveted question flickered within her. What if they were not only crafting art, but bridging worlds? Days turned into nights as she meticulously plotted her plan. Ideas consumed her, often stealing precious sleep. The studio served as her sanctuary, where she mingled canvases filled with abstract expressions of her fears, her joys, and the deep yearning for existence beyond mere survival. Each brushstroke felt like reclaiming a morsel of her identity. The prospect of sharing her work felt like stepping onto a precipice, exhilarating yet terrifying. What if others dismissed her efforts? The thought twisted her stomach, yet it was eclipsed by a burgeoning desire. She envisioned a moment that brought people together, where vulnerability traversed the barriers of class, upbringing, and race. It was ambition born from inspiration, a leap toward dismantling a long-standing narrative that had constrained her and Jamal. As invitations went out, she found herself oscillating between excitement and anxiety. What if nobody showed up? What if it fell flat? She grappled with these doubts, battling the internal voice that whispered incessantly about her inadequacies and past failures. The fateful evening approached, with the studio awash in golden hues, anticipation crackling in the air. It was the culmination of her courage, dreams materializing among friends and strangers alike. What would that night reveal? Would she dissolve into the background, retreating into the shadows of her son's spotlight? Or would she finally bring forth her narrative, intertwining it with Jamal's? As she stood before her display, heart pounding and palms clammy, she took a measured breath. The moment had arrived. She could feel the weight of all that had brought her here settle around her shoulders. But just as she prepared to step forward, the door swung open, and in walked a familiar face. Someone from her past who once shared her artistic dreams but had chosen a different path. The air shifted, thickening with unarticulated expectations and old judgments. The tension spiraled as the intersection of their paths unfolded. What would happen now? Would the walls start to close in, or would this encounter become yet another brushstroke in her evolving story? As she locked eyes with the intruder from her past, she felt the ground beneath her quake with both trepidation and resolve. The true test awaited. Karen's gaze locked onto the familiar figure, a whirlwind of emotions swirling within her. The individual was Mia, a vibrant artist who once shared Karen's passion for paint and poetry. Their trajectories had diverged. Mia's success had catapulted her into the art world, while Karen had surrendered her dreams to the daily grind of motherhood and practicality. Now here was Mia, an unexpected reminder of everything Karen had forsaken. Mia's eyes widened with recognition, a smile spreading on her face before the warmth of their old camaraderie settled into coolness. No words were exchanged yet, but the silence screamed potential judgment, and Karen felt each heartbeat echo into the growing void between them. Would Mia see the modest display as a mockery of her own artistic ascendancy? The thought ignited a fresh wave of anxiety. "Karen!" Jamal called, his voice cutting through the tension. He was oblivious to the undercurrents swirling around his mother and the arrival of the intruder. He motioned for her to come closer, desperate to introduce his mom as an artist to the gathering crowd. As Karen willed her feet to shuffle forward, each step felt momentous, a testimony to her determination to reclaim her space and voice. She could sense Mia's eyes on her, scrutinizing her canvas, searching for flaws. In that moment, vulnerability enveloped Karen like a shroud, as she tried to hold on to the courage she'd so deliberately conjured. "Hey, Mom," Jamal said, glancing excitedly from her to Mia. "This is my friend Mia. She's amazing." His exuberance was infectious. It rekindled a spark of confidence within Karen. "Mia, what an unexpected surprise," Karen managed, her voice steadier than she felt. "It's great to see you." "You too, Karen. I love how you're finally showcasing your art," Mia replied. Her tone dipped in genuine curiosity, but Karen detected a hint of condescension mixed in. Regardless of Mia's veiled critique, Karen reminded herself of her purpose. She was not merely showcasing art. She was sharing a narrative infused with the authenticity of her life thus far. Jamal guided Karen beside the canvas, positioning himself as her greatest ally. "We're bridging stories together," he announced brightly, his youthful enthusiasm blind to the underlying tension coursing between the adults. Mia's expression shifted subtly, revealing a mix of admiration and something Karen could not quite place. Was it envy? Karen felt a pulse of empowerment. Perhaps her public declaration could challenge more than just her fears. It could provoke introspection in others. "What's the story behind this piece?" Mia asked, gesturing toward the canvas, talons of curiosity eager to dig deeper. Taking a breath, Karen realized this was her moment, an opportunity to articulate her journey. "It's about reclaiming identity," she said, words flowing more freely now. "I've spent so much time fulfilling everyone else's expectations that I lost myself along the way. This," she motioned to her work, "is about my fight to blend my artistry with my life's complexities." A stillness followed her revelation, allowing the depths of her admission to sink in. Mia's gaze grew softer, realizing this wasn't just a portrait, but a reflection of resilience, a testimony of transformation. A flicker of understanding passed between them, a silent recognition that perhaps art hadn't been a competition, but a shared language of struggle and expression. Yet a part of Karen resisted this potential breakthrough. Trauma ran deep, and the battle for validation within herself was still ongoing. Just then, amidst the sound of laughter and clinking glasses, an unexpected comment echoed through the gathering, one that ricocheted against Karen's vulnerability. It came from the shadows, someone she thought was just an onlooker. Now the real test loomed larger than ever, a test of Karen's self-worth and commitment to her truth. Would she continue to stand firm in her narrative, or allow the judgment of others to recalibrate her journey? As she faced the crowd, the weight of expectation intertwined with her newfound resolve. Would tonight be the beginning of her ascent, or the moment her fears would dictate her next steps? The night was just unfolding, and she had to decide how far she was willing to go. What awaited her next, amidst the noise of scrutiny, was a revelation she both craved and dreaded. Karen's heartbeat thrummed in her ears, drowning out the laughter and conversation surrounding her. The comment lingered, a specter she couldn't shake off. Who really cared about her story? Did she care about success as defined by others, or was something deeper at stake? Jamal's hand tightened on her shoulder, grounding her in the present. "Mom, tell them the story again," he urged, his eyes shining as he beamed with pride. The warmth of his enthusiasm opened a door within her, nudging bravery into a crack in her hesitation. Breathing deeply, she turned toward the gathering of faces. Each one, familiar and curious, bore the weight of their own expectations. Were they here for her art, her story, or the allure of success that it might promise? The answer wasn't clear, but the moment she faced them felt like an invitation to reclaim her narrative. "This piece reflects my journey," she began, her voice steadying with conviction. "It's not just about art, it's about my life's complexities, the roles I've played, and the person I'm becoming again." As the words spilled from her, colors splashed vibrantly onto a once muted canvas in her mind. She recalled late nights filled with shadows, the weight of unfulfilled dreams pressing down on her. Art was a way to escape, to confront the fears she had long buried beneath layers of practicality. It was through her brush that she found the whispers of her forgotten self, yearning for expression. Every stroke in this painting tells a story of loss, of rediscovery, and most importantly, of defiance against what others expected from me, she said, daring to meet Mia's gaze once more. This time, she faced an unexpected reflection. There was admiration dancing in Mia's eyes, but also something softer, as if they had begun an unspoken passage into shared vulnerability. Yet doubt still nipped at Karen's heels. The lingering voice of the onlooker reminded her of the harsh reality she wanted to escape: validation through success. Was her passion for art sufficient when the world frequently measured worth through accolades? Before she could spiral into her thoughts, another attendee, clearly emboldened by the evening spirit, piped up. "That sounds beautiful, but people connect with success. What does it mean to paint your struggles if no one sees you thrive?" The words clanged in the air, igniting a twinge in Karen. Was success measured only by societal approval? Had she spent years silencing her voice in pursuit of a status that never fulfilled her? Yet even more pressing was the weight of her response. Behind her, Jamal shifted uncomfortably, sensing the tension that her placidity could not hide. This was not just Karen's battle. It was a moment that could shape her son's perception of worth and identity. "Success isn't solely accolades," Karen finally said, her tone sharper yet filled with newfound strength. "It's about authenticity. It's about the stories we tell and the connections we make. If my art doesn't speak to you, that's okay, but it's still mine." In that moment, Karen leaned into discomfort, unraveling expectations entwined with her journey. The eyes of the crowd hardened for a fleeting second before softening again, as reflections mingled like strokes on a canvas, blurring the lines of judgment and understanding. As conversation floated around her about various interpretations, Karen felt the weight lift. Each voice contributed to a dialogue about growth, creativity, and resilience. This was an opportunity to inspire, an insatiable tug into the realms of connection she had longed for. But with that realization came deeper introspection. Could she truly redefine success, despite how others perceived it? And if she did, could she maintain her momentum through the noise of doubt and expectations? In that instant, a challenge bubbled within her. The path ahead was obscured by questions, but clarity began to spark as she recalled the motivations that fueled her. The passion that wove through every fiber of her being. The artistry that was hers alone. Determination swelled within her anew as she realized the crux of her journey lay not within the accolades, but in the stubborn act of claiming her voice in a world that often sought to silence it. And as the evening wore on, she resolved to embrace the unknowns alongside the certainties she once clung to. But a sudden realization struck her with startling clarity. What would happen when she had to face the most daunting critiques, those of her own inner voice? She would have to tackle that truth unflinchingly as she ventured deeper into her story. What awaited her as she ventured further down that path of self-discovery, amidst lingering doubts and burgeoning self-worth? The answers were as tantalizing as they were terrifying. Karen felt the frisson of challenge as she left the gathering, a sense of urgency shadowing her thoughts. She had spoken, yet the questions that brewed inside her now demanded attention. Each step on the cracked pavement felt like a pulse, each heartbeat echoing her resolve to redefine not only her art, but her worth as well. Jamal, oblivious to the storm swirling within his mother, chattered excitedly about how he wanted to paint someday too. His vibrant imagination contrasted with Karen's internal struggle, a stark reminder of the untainted aspirations that often dissipate under the weight of adulthood and societal expectations. She smiled at him, yet her mind spun with the need to unpack her own ambitions more deeply. Though she had bravely announced the importance of authenticity before the audience, shadows still lurked at the edges of her consciousness, teasing her with thoughts of self-doubt. What would happen if their scrutiny turned to critique? Would her newfound conviction wear thin in the face of harsh judgment? Over the next few days, Karen turned to her paintbrush as a refuge and a tool for exploration. The canvas became her silent confidant, reflecting every nuance of her emotional landscape. She splashed colors with ferocity, each stroke exercising fragments of fear, regret, longing. Yet, as the work unfolded, she grappled with a pivotal realization. The art she created spoke volumes, but she must also listen to herself. She began to ask herself hard questions. What were her true ambitions? She knew she wanted to create, but did she seek validation through fame or success, or was there a deeper calling yet uncharted? Walking through her neighborhood one evening, she noticed the vibrant murals that adorned the walls, each one a testament to stories untold, fragments of struggles, joys, and triumphs in the community. They sparked a thought. Perhaps her art wasn't just for accolades. Maybe it was a bridge, a way to connect threads of shared experience. This new understanding led her to a local art studio, one that fostered collaboration among artists from various backgrounds. It felt like a leap into the unknown, a potential avenue to engage with others. But the thought of sharing her work evoked the familiar tightness in her chest. Could she expose her vulnerabilities in front of a community that thrived on shared experiences? Despite every hesitant inclination, Karen signed up for a workshop. The date loomed on her calendar like an impending storm, a reminder of the choices she had made to move forward in her journey. When that day arrived, she walked inside the studio, a swirl of nerves meeting the warmth of laughter and creativity flourishing in the air. As she mingled, she began to observe her surroundings. Each artist, absorbed in their own process, wore their insecurities like badge of honor. A man sketching a self-portrait grimaced as he compared his work to an unfinished piece by a fellow artist. A woman playing with color combinations didn't hesitate to wipe her canvas clean when things didn't meet her vision. Karen felt a flicker of camaraderie amongst them. Here were people grappling with the same battle of self-doubt she faced, launching themselves into uncertain waters, each seeking validation in different ways. Energized by this realization, she picked up a brush and began to explore a new piece. Each stroke became less about perfection and more about expression, the honest portrayal of her journey. It was exhilarating. Yet as the hours passed, ambition tangled with anxiety as a new doubt crept in. What if showcasing her work to this tight-knit circle awakened the harshest critic yet, herself? Could she embrace her artistic voice, wrestle with intimate fears, and still appeal to the notion of connection? Fueled by this profound internal conflict, Karen could feel the familiar urge to retreat bubbling under the surface. Yet something new emerged within her, a resolve that demanded this time would be different. She was ready to confront not just the fears of the audience, but the ones that gnawed at her insides, the relentless critic. As she finished her piece, a voice of fierce determination flickered to life. This journey was not about impressing others, nor solely about herself. It was about creating authenticity and courage through art. What awaited her when she shared her work with the world? Or did she still need to face the judgment she feared most? The answers breathed heavily between her heart and the canvas. The morning sun streamed into Karen's studio, illuminating the colorful chaos she had embraced over the last few weeks. Each stroke of paint on the canvas had become a thread in a rich tapestry, weaving together the complexities of her spirit, her fears, and her longing for connection. The ambient sounds of the city filtered through the open window, but all she could hear was the hum of possibility. As she finished putting the final touches on her latest piece, Journey of 1,000 Colors, Karen paused to reflect. Art had transformed from a mere hobby into a powerful voice she didn't know she possessed, allowing her to confront her multitudes, mother, artist, and architect of her own aspirations. Tonight, she would unveil her work at the local art studio, a space that welcomed stories like hers. The nervous anticipation danced in her stomach, intermingling with a fierce determination she hadn't felt in years. This was no longer simply about sharing her artistry, it was about reclaiming her narrative, amplifying her voice, and inviting those around her to join in a dialogue of authenticity. The night of the exhibition arrived with a palpable energy in the air. As artists gathered and conversation flowed, Karen could feel the electric charge of shared experiences mingle with the aspirations swirling around her. Each person brought a unique story, the artistic struggles, the triumphs, the fears of judgment. When the time came, Karen stood before her canvases, the apprehension unfurling into courage. She glanced at Jamal, who stood in the crowd, his pride shining like a beacon of encouragement. His belief in her ignited her resolve to speak. "Welcome, everyone. I'm Karen," she began, her voice steady, "and tonight I want to share not just my art, but my journey, a journey that has not just included a palette of colors, but also the shadows of doubt and the light of hope." As she explained the stories behind each piece, how they reflected her evolution and search for identity, she could feel the weight of self-doubt begin to dissolve. For the first time, she didn't dwell on the possibility of criticism. Instead, she focused on the authenticity of her voice. Tears stung her eyes as she recounted Jamal's tenacity, how his own ambition had mirrored her own, pushing her to step beyond her fears. The room felt alive, pulsating with familiarity and community, and she realized she was no longer just an artist in a room. She was part of a collective narrative that bound them all together. After the presentation, as the audience engaged with her work, Karen found herself surrounded by fellow artists wanting to discuss their own interpretations, their own stories of resilience. They spoke of struggles, the desire for recognition, and the healing that art provided. In that moment, Karen understood the essence of her journey was not in the external validation she had once sought, but in the connections forged through shared experiences. Amid the conversations, Mia approached her, eyes bright with sincerity. "I underestimated you, Karen. Your art speaks volumes. I want to explore collaboration on a project that highlights stories just like yours, connecting community narratives through art." Karen felt a rush of disbelief coupled with validation. That affirmation from Mia, which initially felt like a distant fantasy, was becoming a reality. Not for accolades, but as a testament to the power of authenticity and shared storytelling. As the night drew to a close, a sense of achievement surged through her. This was not merely an exhibition. It was a celebration of transformation, both for her and for everyone present. Each comment of affirmation felt like bricks being laid in the grand architecture of her renewed identity. A resilient palette dancing vibrantly against the backdrop of her past. Stepping outside into the crisp night air, she looked down at Jamal, who beamed back at her, his pride a mirror reflecting her own. It was then Karen realized that what had started as a personal journey had blossomed into something far more meaningful. An intersection of their stories, crafted through the layers of struggles and triumphs, connecting them at the heart of creativity. With newfound clarity, she understood it was now her mission to empower not only herself, but to create spaces for voices like hers, advocating for those often silenced in the shadows. Each story mattered, every piece of art a stepping stone toward a collective consciousness. This transformation marked the beginning of a larger venture that would interweave their paths as mother and son into a shared pursuit of creative exploration and connection. With Jamal by her side, Karen stepped boldly towards their next chapter, a journey into the light. No more self-doubt, no more hesitation. She had conquered the boundary between fear and expression, carving out a place not only for herself, but for every individual striving to claim their story. The end was not an end, but rather a weaving of threads into a crafted future. The moment was strong, the narrative ready to unfold in ways they had only begun to imagine, filled with colors, stories, and the promise of endless possibilities. Now it's your turn to embrace transformation. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about this epic conclusion. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who are ready to embark on their own journeys of self-discovery. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share your love.